Hello, everybody. I'm just putting in my initial chat here in the comments section, and we will get started. Let's put a little winky face on there. Wink, wink. Super chats are welcome if you want a little bit of extra support for your question. We're going to start off like we normally do here on Thursdays at 5:30. We're a couple minutes late here today, but that is absolutely okay because sometimes things happen. We are going to give you an update on everything that we've been doing this week here in the garden, talk a little bit about the previous videos that we've done as well. And if you've got any questions on your mind, drop them in the chat, please. We will get to them as soon as they pop up. I will stop whatever I'm doing and go through the chat with you all. So this last week in the garden, something I just did recently was get our fall crops. Hello, Farzan. Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. What we just did yesterday was get our fall crops planted, and that is our beets. Okay, buddy. That's fine. Sorry, my son. Those were our beets, our radishes, and then our kohlrabi we got planted. Those will be our main fall crops that we're putting in this year because it's what we go through the most of as far as the fall crops go. Oh, I also did some lettuce, some salad varieties of lettuce that we got planted for our fall crops. So you might be thinking like, wow, it's August 25th. I'm in a zone 5. Wow, that seems a little bit late for planting. Well, it's actually not, believe it or not. So most of these crops have a maturity date of around 45 to 60 days. So the crops that we're planting in the fall are also going to be frost hardy. So they're going to be able to withstand a pretty heavy frost. So kohlrabi, beets, radishes, your many root crops will do just fine. Hey, dude. And they can go through a frost just fine. So even here, August 25th, a couple of months puts us out well into our very first frost date. I am aware of that. But by that point, the plants will be just about putting out fruit that we can harvest, and we'll be all set. Oops, not sure what happened there. So not worried about it. We're a couple of days late on the beets out of anything, but the radishes and kohlrabi, I know for sure will do absolutely fine. So if you feel like you're behind at all, I know a lot of you are. I know a lot of you are in a climate warmer than we are here in southeastern Wisconsin. So if you haven't gotten your fall crops planted yet, hey, can you go do something? Go play? We're live. See? Live. Hi, everybody. Can you wave?
Hi.
Do you want to talk about gardening? What's your favorite thing to garden? Talk into here. What's your favorite thing to garden? Come here.
I'm going to tell you one.
Okay, when you're done chewing. We got a question here. Should I change the soil of my plants after some time to keep fertile the soil and get the vegetables healthy? What's that? What's your favorite thing to grow?
Peas and tomatoes.
Awesome. Why peas and tomatoes? Do you know how to grow them very good? What's your secret?
The things are water, sun, and dirt.
And dirt?
And compost.
Yeah. Compost? Oh, that's important. How do you make the compost?
You put stuff in that bugs eat, and they turn it into dirt.
Awesome. And the bacteria and microorganisms. And what else? What else are we missing? That starts with an F. Fungi.
Fungi.
Yeah, fungi too. That's how we make compost. Let me get to your question quick, Farzan. Should I change the soil of my plants? It really depends on how long you've been growing your plants in that soil and if they're inside or outside. I'm assuming that you're talking about indoor plants. If you're talking about indoor plants, you can really just change your soil maybe once every 2 years, if that really. Like, as long as we're fertilizing them, the soil will be just fine, and it kind of develops its own little microbe system in there. So usually for several years, 2 to 3 years, you'd be just fine. But if you're not seeing any negative effects from your plants themselves, then you'll probably do all right. Like, you really don't have to take the time to change those. All right, can you go play, buddy?
Okay.
All right, love you. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, love you. All right. So yeah, you shouldn't have to change out the soil unless you've tried to do a bunch of other stuff and your plant's condition is still not changing or not becoming positive. Thank you, Expedition Homestead, for telling me about the grow lights. I made a detailed video about sustainability on my channel. Awesome. Let's check out your channel. I love checking out people's channels. Hi, dude. I see you. I love checking out people's channels as we're doing these live streams. So we're going to hop over to our desktop view here. Farzan, if you could drop your channel in the chat, what it's called. Actually, there, I can just search it. Zaan, I believe. Filters, channel. Let's hop back here, see what it's called. Farzaan. Ba 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 ba. I don't know which one you are, Farzan. Let us know. I can't go to your channel directly from here. I will check that out. But as I was saying, we just got our fall crops planted. If you have not done so, definitely get to it, because if you have not planted, most people, I've been amazed. Even myself, I am guilty of this, especially in my younger years. I planted a spring crop. I got all of my vegetables, everything that I wanted to grow, right? And took care of them, grew them up, got a harvest out of it, tilled it all into the soil, and then I just left it there for many years. And then I realized, wow, I can also plant some summer crops too. You know, we can get all of our okra, a second crop of bush beans, even a second crop of tomatoes you can get planting, cucumbers, pumpkins, squash, all that kind of stuff you can plant again during the summer months. But not only that, you can also go through and plant a bunch of fall crops about 50 to 60 days before your very first frost date as well. So if you're not utilizing all of this time in our garden, not only are we leaving the soil susceptible to dying off and not living, but we're also missing out on a good harvest that we could get from our garden. And really, we can be growing 3 times as many vegetables as we would have if we just planted out our spring crop, right? And so there's no reason not to. I will admit, during the summer months, it's hard to get out there during the crazy busy season and go through and plant again during the summer and fall. But it is a great time to grow. I find that I have less problems with pests once we get later on in the year. They've kind of died off a little bit, so there's not as much pressure there. We don't get as much of the spring diseases coming to our plants either. The hardest issue with planting a summer and fall crop is just going to be dealing with the seedlings that are growing, making sure that you're taking care of them very well, that they're not dying off due to the extreme heat, which can be hard to grow seedlings in. We're going to search self-sustainability, ability, complete information. For Farzan, we're going to check out Farzan's channel here. There we go. I found it. Now I'm just going to share it to myself, or we'll just pop on over here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're checking out Farzan's channel here. He said he just got a video up a couple of days ago. So when I do these live streams, I like to check out people's channels if they say that they've got a video put out. So oops. There we go. This is Farzan's channel. 133 subscribers. He's got some tech videos in here, a ton of shorts. Wow, a lot of shorts on here. Let's just go home here. So, Indian tech channels and useful technologies. Very cool. So I would encourage you to continue making videos, considering that you started already, if you've got something that you're passionate about. So I see that we've got a couple of different things going on here in the channel. If you've got anything that you are passionate about, right? I mean, absolutely passionate about, I would recommend considering just doing only videos on that. So I've had several different channels in the past. In fact, I can show you right now. I've got, let's see, I've got all these channels here. I did a channel on hemp stuff several years ago when I was big into hemp and CBD. We've got Expedition Homestead Family, Ripley Does Stuff, Ripley's Aquarium, Sterling Blockchain, Mind Seed, Ripon Media, True Threads, Adventures with Sterling. So just like stuff that I kind of like wanted to make in the past, but just never got around to it. And the reason why I stuck with gardening is because I love gardening. If you're going to be making a YouTube channel, it has to be something that you're absolutely passionate about. Otherwise, you're not going to stick with it, because YouTube is hard. YouTube is difficult. It takes a lot of time. Most people do not succeed. I have not yet succeeded on YouTube. I've still got a long ways to go and many more years to put into it before I would even consider it being a successful adventure, you know. And so with that being said, make sure you are passionate about whatever you're doing. Heather Rue, thank you so much for tuning in today. I live in zone 7B. Do you know if I should be fertilizing my fruit trees now for fall? I have a cherry, peach, pear, pluot, and plum tree. The last four are only about 4 years old. I should add that it's in northern Arizona, but not the desert. Yep, Arizona, it does vary quite a bit depending on where you're growing. Yeah. Now would be a totally fine time to fertilize your trees there. You know, you don't have to be very specific when it comes to fertilizing, as long as that we're making sure that we're not over fertilizing. You don't want to do that. Obviously, you don't want to under fertilize your fruit trees either, but over fertilizing can cause damage to the soil overall and the biodiversity that's in that soil, especially if we're using any sort of chemical fertilizers. I always recommend that people use an organic fertilizer that is inoculated with fungi as well, because the fungi is really going to be doing the work when it comes to your soil and the overall health of your garden, right? We can throw chemical fertilizers on our gardens as much as we want to. We can dump them all in there, but the only true way to really reach the potential that your plants have to offer is going to be by organic fertilizers, compost, fungi, tilling in all the vegetative matter that we have in our gardens that would go into the compost. I encourage you. I actually just did a video showing you a little bit about how I did that. I believe the video is titled, let me scroll down to it. I don't know what it's called. There. Go over to my channel. I posted it a month ago. It's called Prepping Garden Beds and Planting Heat-Tolerant Summer Crops. Let me click on it. Heat-Tolerant Summer Vegetables. In that video, I detailed how basically whenever I am going through my next succession planting, or if I'm planting in my summer crops after spring or fall crops after summer, what I will do is I will take all of the extra vegetative matter from the plants that were growing in that bed, as well as a little bit of compost from the compost bin, and coffee grounds usually make their way in there. I will till that into the soil. Just the first couple of inches, I'll basically rake it in. I wouldn't even call it tilling it in, because I'm basically creating a compost mulch on the top few inches of the soil. And so what that's going to do is all of this brand new fresh green matter, it doesn't look pretty at first, but it's going to break down very, very quickly. And it's going to increase the amount of bacteria that we have in the soil right there, right? So if you've got a lot of mulch in your garden via wood chips like I do, you're going to introduce a lot more fungi. But if you've got a lot of just organic matter like vegetative matter and leaves and such, not dry brown leaves, but fresh leaves from the garden, if you till that into the soil, that's going to give us a high bacteria count. You can do your own test. You can send in your soil samples to different universities and local extension offices if you would like to see what your soil ratio is. If you've got not enough fungi, if you've got way too much, or if you don't have enough bacteria, whatever it might be, I say don't worry about how much you actually have to send it in, but just till in as much as we can. Get all of that vegetative matter put back into the garden where it came from. So ultimately, we're returning everything that we're growing that doesn't get used by us or our chickens. Future livestock will be. If it's not consumed by us, then we're turning it back into the soil right away. We're doing some of it as we plant our new crops, tilling it in to bring that bacteria content higher. And then some of it, we're throwing it in the compost bin where we can use during the next year after that compost is done. I'm also a big fan of throwing compost in our gardens before it's even finished yet. I think that the process of breaking down in the soil and getting all those microbes, bacteria worked up and eating is a good thing to implement in the soil directly. So it's not all happening on the compost bin, but it's actually happening in our garden beds as well, all throughout the entire year. My sunflowers, hi, Davis. Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's live stream. We got a comment down here. Hi, my sunflowers are heading to seeds after bloom. Now it's producing powdery mildew after bloom. Does the powdery mildew affect the seeds as it's developing? If you're trying to eat the seeds yourself, yes, it would. If that gets bad enough, it can definitely degrade the seeds and not be something that you're going to want to eat. But if you are just drying out the seeds, then a simple powdery mildew will probably not do too much as far as the quality of the seeds go if you are trying to either store them to plant next year or maybe give them out to birds or something like that. That would be just fine. But if you're using the sunflowers seeds for your own consumption, then I would definitely recommend that you try and take care of that a little bit. But Davis, maybe just drop in the chat on what you're planning on using the sunflower seeds for. If you've never roasted sunflower seeds, you just take the whole head and roast it. It's very, very, very delicious. I'm going to make a video on that very shortly since our sunflowers are just about ready. Thank you. Can you use weeds in the compost? That's almost 75% of what I use for my compost is weeds. And I also feed my chickens a ton of weeds. I pick the dandelions, wild lettuce, what is it? Oh, why am I blanking on this? Oh my gosh. The prickly stuff, the super prickly stuff, the thistle. There we go. The thistle, I feed that to the chickens. All of it I feed to the chickens and I put it in the compost. Nothing that's growing on our property should be put to waste. Use it in the compost somewhere, feed it to the chickens if you've got them, whatever it might be. use your resources, because nature has been set up in a way by our creator to be something that is self-sustainable if we use it in the right way. And when we use it in the right way, it's also going to take a lot less labor on our end, because we're meeting the code, if you will. This code that is written in nature, that's essentially what we're trying to duplicate as gardeners. And yes, there is different ways, tips and tricks and hacks, if you will, to kind of hack nature. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if we obey the laws of nature, we're going to have an easier time gardening. We're going to get a better harvest. We're going to get a healthier harvest that is ultimately bringing us more nutrition through our fruits and vegetables as well. Plus, it's going to be a more rewarding process, right? Sugar and spice, clap, clap, clap. Thank you. It is going to be a more rewarding process when we're working with these systems that have already been put in place, as opposed to working against them and trying to make this clean, sterile environment where everything is separated out. You're stressed about what you're doing with all of this stuff. Do not stress about it. Work with the nature, and I hope we can make your experience better overall by this garden channel here. That's what I preach all the time. We try and bring you simple yet effective and affordable means of gardening. Very rarely do we spend any sort of money on the videos that we make or the techniques that we share on the channel. We do different products and stuff like this, like we get grow lights, or I got a little chainsaw that I got to test out here in an upcoming video, stuff like that. But as far as the actual techniques to planting, to maintaining your plants, and to bringing you the harvest that you're actually trying to look for, as well as bringing more beauty in your garden through flowers, fruit trees, perennials, chickens, all that kind of stuff. Everything that we do here on the garden is in a low cost manner, because I ain't got a lot of money. I just don't. What do I do for a living? Right now, I am a Farzan, I should mention, asked, what do you do for a living? I mean, what do you do for earning money? Yes, sugar and spice. It sustains itself. Absolutely. So what I do for earning money. Well, I don't have a lot of money because I try and invest as much as I can in both the garden and the YouTube channel, in my family, in my community, as well as our actual personal investment lives. I put away as much as I can. But what I do for a living is an electrician. I'm a journeyman electrician for Next Electric. Most of our work is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been working on basically the high-rise buildings in downtown Milwaukee for the past 3.5 years. Before that, I was at Freighter, and that was just about 3 years as well. The biggest building that we just did, a project that I just ran with my superintendent. I shouldn't say I ran it. I was one of the lead foremen on it, though. It was an incredible project. It was a 13-story building. I believe it was the foundation was set in 1914, so almost a 110-year-old building. It was a complete gut job. So if you can imagine, 13 stories, 110 years old, ripping everything out of it, putting all new infrastructure while still implementing some of the existing infrastructure and maintaining it as a historical building. So there were certain things that we could not touch. We had to make sure that it showed and expressed what the building looked like during its original building phases. So it was a crazy project, the hardest project I've ever been on. But short answer, I'm an electrician. I absolutely love what I do. Absolutely love it. I wouldn't wish for anything different, because every day I'm doing something new. I'm learning. I'm growing. I think it's an exciting field to be in as well. The future is bright for electricians, for tradesmen, for plumbers, carpenters, laborers. We need people in the trades. I will shout it out from the rooftops. We need people in the trades, ladies and gentlemen. So if you know anybody who's thinking about it, if you know anybody who's kind of on the edge of the fence of hopping down into the trade world, I would highly recommend it. And if you want them to even talk to me, you can email me at expeditionhomestead at gmail.com, or find us on Facebook or YouTube, drop a comment. I'm more than happy to talk to people and guide them into the trades if they would like to. So that is what I do for a living. I'm a journeyman electrician. Heather Rue says, I'll definitely use the weeds. Thank you. I don't have chickens yet, but plan on it. Awesome. Chickens are great. I love chickens. We've only got 5 chickens, and we cannot keep up with the eggs that they produce. I mean, it seems like I'm not able to get out there every single day and harvest the eggs, but the kids try and get to as much as they can. But it still seems like every once in a while I will go out there and I'll just find like 15 eggs, 16, 20 eggs just sitting in the coop, just ready to be harvested. And so when that happens, usually we'll make quiches or a whole bunch of French toast at one time for the kids because they love French toast. It's just great breakfast meal. I think we can all agree on that one. French toast is the bomb. But all kinds of different recipes where you can prepare a ton of eggs at one point and then cook them, freeze them so they're good for use for many, many more months to come. So yeah, Heather, please get some chickens. They don't take a lot of time either. I've been meaning to do some more content on the chickens myself because we've only done a couple of videos on them, but the chicken coop that we built does not take a lot of time to maintain. It's not huge. It's about, I don't know how, maybe 5 by 8 ish. And then we've got a little chicken run area for them in the back. If you check out our garden tour video that we just did a couple of days, that'll give you a nice idea of what we're working with as far as the chickens. We go through the chickens first, and then we go through an update on our flower bed that we have, our vegetable garden, the willow trees, elderberry trees, and then our front flower gardens as well. So that was just a video that we did a few days ago. Sugar and spice. Do you grow grapevines? Well, we've got one grapevine that we've been growing over at my mother-in-law's house. We were living there for a short period of time as we were transferring from our condo that we sold to our current home. So we've planted a ton of stuff back there. So if you go in between like 2.5 and 3 years ago, you'll see a lot of videos on that property. We've got willow trees that we propagated over there, raspberries, all kinds of sages, Russian sage, white sage, a ton of ornamental perennial flowers as well. And we did grow grapevines. So grapevines are something that I have not made my mind up on yet as far as their long-term viability for me to grow in the garden. Just because it seems like, I don't know, maybe it was the variety that we grew, but the grapevine, it got attacked by bees one year. It gets attacked by the Japanese beetle. It seems like it attracts all of the pests in the garden, go right to the grapevines for some reason. And then they make these, again, it might be the variety, but they made these tiny little grapes, like smaller than a dime. And we only got a few bunches of them. And even this year looks a little bit better. It's, I think, in its 3rd year of growth. Unless it's been 4 years already. It might have been 4 years already. Either 3 or 4 years since we started this grapevine. And it seems like it's maybe getting a little bit better, but just not so sure on grapes yet. I think when we have our actual homestead location where we've got a few acres of land where I can grow a bunch of them and really take care of them on site, then I will probably grow some more. How long does it take to fruit? So usually you will get a fruit set in your second year. At least we did. Any recommendations for natural weed killers? Kimtisha, thank you so much for tuning into the episode today. Okay, I started this 2 years ago. Sugar and spice, you should be getting a harvest this year. Any natural weed killers? Yeah, there's a couple of different things. First thing is a flame torch. You can use that, but if you've got wood chips or mulch or something like that, then be careful of that because you can definitely set fire to mulch. Actually, I have a funny story. I was going over to our P.O. box, which I should probably post on the channel somewhere here. I don't know if any of you would be interested in sending stuff out to our P.O. box, but I was going out to our P.O. box, which is at UPS. And what happened was I got out there, pulled up to the place, and all of a sudden I see like a big plume of smoke coming from the ground. And I was like, okay, a little bit confused at first. So I walk over, and sure enough, the mulch in the front of the building is on fire, like literally on fire. So I go and like stomp this thing out. I run into the store and I tell somebody, hey, your landscape is on fire. It's on fire. And so they go and they fill up a bucket of water, 5-gallon bucket full of water. I'm like out there stomping it out, trying to get rid of it. They come out there with the 5-gallon bucket of water, dump it all over the place. And then I walk in the store, continue on like nothing ever happened. We all look at each other like, did that just happen? It was so weird. So I go in the store, do my thing, pick up my mail, and then come outside, and sure enough, it's on fire again. So they go and fill up another 5-gallon bucket, and they kept on bringing out water, and it was still smoking. So they like dug. Told us like, okay, we need to dig deeper. So luckily I had a shovel in my car. So I'm out there digging away the mulch because this stuff must be on fire pretty deep into the ground. And so it was like about a foot deep where we had embers, like pretty much glowing red hot, that were on fire. So to dig that all out, and then finally a couple more buckets later, and we put out that fire. So moral of the story is, if you're using, I'm sure this was done by some inconsiderate civilian tossing a disgusting cigarette out the window, but if you're using a weed torch, then be careful, because you can set stuff on fire. But that is my number one. Otherwise, you can use distilled white vinegar, apple cider vinegar. There's dishwashing liquid, I believe. There's a certain recipe with dishwashing soap. Boiling water, people have used boiling water and salt. Otherwise, there is rubbing alcohol as well works. All kinds of different things that you can use. Just give it a Google, and whatever you have that you can use in your kitchen, go ahead and use that, so that way you don't have to spend money. But I found that, sometimes it's very convenient to go out with a flame torch or boiling water, because then you for sure don't have to do anything. Just go and boil up a pot of water, dump it on those plants. What that does is basically the cells of the plant explode from the temperature, and then it's just a chain reaction from there, kills off the weed, and you are good to go. No weeds, no problem. Otherwise, you've all heard of the term eat the weeds. There's a reason why that term is out there, because you can actually eat most of the weeds in your garden or at your property. Most of them that grow are edible in some way, shape, or form. My favorite edible weeds would have to be purslane, number one by far. Purslane is so good. You can eat it raw. You can cook it in meals. You can throw it in a blender for your smoothies. It's got this elegant, sour taste, yet very fleshy. It's a nice, thick, succulent weed. If you've never seen what it looks like, we're going to hop over to the safari right now and show you. All right, here, this is what purslane looks like. Purslane is incredible. Here, this stuff. This, oh, so good. Delish. Absolute delicious. But what you don't want to do is mix it up with spurge, which looks a lot like purslane, as you can tell. But this plant has a little red dot right here, and the leaves are flat. They are not fleshy like the purslane. So purslane leaves are very fleshy and succulent-like here. But spurge is flat. And another thing about spurge, it's toxic, dangerous. I don't know if it could kill you, but it's dangerous. So watch out for spurge. Eat the purslane. Another, I would say, number 2 on my list has to be lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters is a great meal. It is related to the spinach plant, same family as spinach, so it's very high in nutrients, just like purslane is. Lamb's quarters can be eaten raw. The young, tender leaves of lamb's quarters are very delicious and great if you're cooking them, and I would use them in like a spinach quiche. So like Heather recommended earlier with our eggs, make a quiche and pound cake. With our quiche, instead of spinach, we will then substitute lamb's quarters. So a great backyard grown meal out of stuff that doesn't take a lot to produce, and in fact most of it is free, is our lamb's quarters, purslane, and egg quiche. So let's make this go full circle here. A lot of the weeds that we pick out of the garden, I will either compost in the beds directly, or I will compost them in our compost bin, our little pallet bin that we have set up, or I will feed them to the chickens. So my weeds go to the chickens lay the eggs, I pick out the weeds and eat them for myself. They're all free. They grow up wherever we want them to, wherever we let them grow to harvest. Yes, I let my weeds grow, believe it or not. I do selective weeding. I've been planning on making a video on that, but I just haven't got around to it yet. I selective weed my gardens because there's a lot of beneficial weeds that have more nutrients in them that are better and healthier for us than the plants that we buy at the grocery store. So all this stuff that's free getting put together in the natural systems that we talked about before, feeding the chickens those weeds. I'm consuming those weeds myself. We make it together in a great meal, and bada bing, bada boom, just like that, it's done. How perfect is that? How perfect. I'd be really interested in a selective weeding episode. Well, thank you. I will put some more thought into that. I don't script out my videos because I find that my videos are a little bit, I hope they feel a little bit more natural. My language is a little bit more natural and relative to everybody else. If I just go out there, I know what I want to film on, but I literally usually have no idea what I'm going to say, just like in this live video here. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. Could that be a downfall? Possibly, but that is just the way I roll. I don't like to script things out whatsoever. I don't script my videos out. None of them. My shorts, my reels, my stuff on Facebook, none of it. I'm not a writer by any means. My English isn't the greatest. I don't have an expansive vocabulary. But I do get out there and I say what is on my mind, and I say what comes to me in the time. And that's what you get here on the channel. And a lot of you enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's a far more enjoyable process for me too, because I really get to speak from the heart that way. When things come up in my mind during videos, I will just let it roll. I will go with it. And more often than not, that kind of ties a little bit of a story into some of our videos. Especially some of our longer videos. If you only watch our short videos, thank you so much. But our longer videos also have a lot of great content packed into them throughout the entire video. So that is part of the way why I do this. Using my wife's coffee mug, Bendita. Oh, that's funny. Any more comments? Drop them down in the section below. Would be greatly appreciated. Love you all. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the live videos. Again, we are doing these just like I have in the title every Thursday at approximately 5:30. Again, we are in southeastern Wisconsin here, zone 5. So another thing that we're doing in the garden here is we've got a ton of stuff to harvest out this time of year. So it's been hard keeping up with all of that because it seems like our beans, our pole beans, our tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots, onions, all of that stuff like starts coming in like crazy all at one point. So we're trying to manage that, get everything harvested out and used in a respectful manner as well, where we're not putting anything to waste. So that is a hard thing when you have as big of a garden as we do. We just have, we've got our 9 raised garden beds that we grow our vegetables in, and then we have all kinds of pots that we grow the vegetables in. But the hardest thing to keep up on is beans. This year we planted a ton of beans. We had a whole garden bed dedicated to beans, and we have not been able to keep up with them whatsoever. Hey, buddy, can you turn that off? It's a little loud. Thanks, dude. It's got a little spider in the background, a robotic spider that we built that climbs up and down the string. It's pretty cool. So we've been free. Luckily, you can freeze beans just fine, and you'll be able to pull them out of the freezer and use them just as you would. And except for, they're not going to taste like they're fresh anymore. But we will freeze. What people eat in America. We eat all kinds of things, but I'll tell you what I grow in the garden. We're going to go through, just blast it out there, everything that we grew this year. I just got to picture all of my garden beds. We grew Romanesco broccoli, regular broccoli. We grew 3 or 4 different kinds of peppers, a sweet banana pepper, bell peppers, pimento peppers, and then jalapeno peppers. We grew 3 different kinds of cucumbers. There were like a straight 8 cucumbers and then a couple of different ones I can't think of right now. So cucumbers as well. Then we grew 5 different kinds of tomato plants. So I think in total we had 15 tomato plants this year. We grew celery. We grew bush beans. We grew pole beans. We grew sweet peas. We grew snow peas. We grew kohlrabi, 2 different kinds of kohlrabi. There were the white Vienna kohlrabi and purple Vienna kohlrabi. We grew 3 or 4 different kinds of beets. If you want to know everything that we picked off of this list, I will continue in a second. Go over and search buying seeds Expedition Homestead on YouTube, and you'll find the channel that goes through all of the seeds that we bought this year. I don't always buy all of our seeds either. We also do store them. But kohlrabi. Then we grew several different kinds of beets, several different kinds of radishes, turnips, carrots, onions, strawberries, rhubarb, raspberries, apples, and potatoes. We grew potatoes as well. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's everything we grew this year. So quite a bit. We only have 0.35 acres, but you can do a lot with 0.35 acres, ladies and gentlemen. Do not underestimate how much you can grow in your property. As far as growing in the garden goes, the biggest mistake that I made, and this can depend and vary on your property or your soil, but the biggest mistake that I think I made, and I will make a video on it in the future, is the raised garden beds. Raised garden beds are great. They look nice. People love them in the videos. I love the way they look in the backyard. All of our friends and family do as well. The grow beds, they're the greatest thing in the world. You got the raised beds. You've made it as a gardener. Congratulations. You've got raised garden beds. But it's not all sunshine and lollipops in the raised garden bed world. I've made many raised garden bed videos in the past, and I have been set on them being a great way to grow, but there's a couple of downfalls of the raised garden bed. It heats up too fast and it dries out the soil too fast as well. So we do try and keep a lot of wood chips and mulch in the top several inches of our soil in order to maintain the moisture levels a little bit more than we would have otherwise. But overall, a raised garden bed is going to be a little bit harder to grow in if you find yourself needing to water already and you're thinking about growing in a raised garden bed. Then maybe just focus on your soil first and growing in ground before you build a raised garden bed, because there's a lot of incredible ways that we can still amend our soil very efficiently when growing natively in the soil as opposed to a raised garden bed. And we can get all of the different fungi and bacteria in there, everything that we need. We can build that healthy soil. It just takes a little bit of time. You might have to go through with a tiller your first year and till up that first foot of soil to loosen it up, to add in the compost, add in the organic material, mycorrhizal fungi, get all that stuff done in your first year, till up the soil. Add in some mulch if you want to, some wood chips, but don't go crazy if you're growing in ground with annuals like vegetables, because it's going to make the weeding process a little bit harder. As far as my perennial beds go, I pour on literally by the dump truck full. I got 2 dump trucks full of wood chips. You can check out the video. Just search wood chips, Expedition Homestead. Whatever's on your mind when it comes to gardening, do me a favor, search up whatever it is, the topic, and then add Expedition Homestead to the end of it. You'll probably find a video or 2 on it. But I've got 2 dump trucks full of wood chips for a new flower bed area that we created in the backyard here. And then we also spread a lot of those wood chips on our vegetable gardens. I do that in the raised bed because it's okay. It's easy to maintain the weeds in there. But if you're growing in ground, it tends to be a little bit more hard to keep up on the weeds. So in that case, you're going to want to take a stirrup hoe, it's called. So it looks like it's got obviously a handle on it, and then it looks like a D, underneath that. And it's called a stirrup hoe, and you'll take that through all of your soil, just take it down all of your rows really quickly and efficiently in order to weed, just basically chopping those weeds down. They drop and compost in the soil right where they're at. If you've got a lot of wood chips growing, a lot of wood chips on your soil, then that makes that process a little bit more hard. So you have to do a little bit of adjusting. Gardening is circumstantial depending on where you're at. Our techniques could be very different. They could be vastly different. Really, really, really different depending on where we're growing, where we live, how hot it is, all of those things. Humidity, blah, 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 blah. What our soil is right now, if you've got just solid clay soil or compact soil where there's just absolutely no way you're going to turn this into viable soil, use raised garden beds in that case. But not only will they dry out and heat up quicker, but they're also cost prohibitive, not only because of the lumber that we have to purchase, which you can actually build them for about $45 each. Just use a construction grade pine. Don't go and buy cedar or anything like that. And also purchase them in 2x6s, putting them together, stacking them instead of buying 2x12s. You're going to save a lot of money that way. Just go with construction grade pine. It will still last you about 5 years, if not even longer. Compared to a cedar, could maybe do 10 years, 15 years if you're lucky, but it cost 4 times as much compared to the construction grade pine. So really not worth the initial investment, I would say, to go with cedar or anything like that. Just choose a construction grade pine when growing your beds. But the soil, that's another thing. Soil. We spent $600 on soil, It was organic soil. I wanted to make sure I didn't want to fill it up with topsoil because there is nasty, nasty stuff. If you go search on Google topsoil suppliers near you, a lot of that stuff is going to come with some nasty things that you don't want it. High, heavy metal content, lead, asbestos, metal fragments and shavings from the area. Usually what happens is a construction company will come through, they'll grade the soil when they're creating their project during the initial phases of that project. They'll grade the soil up and then they will just ship the soil out to Bobby Joe's soil, and he'll pick up that soil, label it as topsoil, and a lot of gardeners think that they can just pick up that topsoil for their gardens and they can go and grow their food in it, and there isn't going to be any repercussions. If you're growing annuals, it's probably okay. I always say that we should also be cautious no matter what we're bringing into our gardens because, that's our yard, that's our property, that is our land that we should try and keep as pristine as possible and as close to nature as possible without being infiltrated by all these heavy metals and stuff that are very high contents in a lot of different places that you might not think. So we want to be cautious when we bring this stuff into our property. So even if we are growing annuals, you can do it. It's not going to cause you any harm, but it might be causing your property harm later down on the road. So just use a little bit of precaution when bringing in soil for your raised garden beds or anything else for that matter. All right, any more questions? Drop them down in the chat down below. We are going through questions, answering them as soon as they come up here. We're also talking about a couple of different things that we've done in our garden beds over the last week or so and giving you some updates on videos that are yet to come. So drop your comments down in the chat, but in the meantime, I'll talk about some other stuff we've got going on. We are growing elderberries, which are looking out the window here. A lot of them are ready to harvest here. We're going to be doing a video on covering our elderberries because a lot of the times, by the time our elderberries are fully ripe and ready to harvest out and mash up, separating the seeds from the juices out of that elderberry, a lot of the times the birds will get to them before we can, so we will put little bags. Farzan says, you missed some of my comments. Which ones? When I will become self-sustainable, I will make shops and give them on rent. That will be passive income. Awesome. Great idea. Passive income is the way to go. Absolutely. Seeing if we have any other missed comments from you. Can't watch that video right now, but we checked out your channel. Awesome stuff. Keep on making videos, Farzan. Keep on making videos. The elderberries, though, we covered them up with bags as a part of a little bit of an experiment. It's like a mesh bag that you cover over them so the birds can't get to them. So we did some of the elderberries with the bags, some of them without, to see if they're worth the hassle or if they cause any damage to the elderberry fruit either. We will see. I've never used bags in the past, but I do know that I've missed out on some great harvests in the past because literally, like, I had the thought in my head, like, oh, hey, I got to go and harvest those. And then the next day or the day after, birds will get to them and eat everything that is left on the vine or on the bush. So that's been a bummer in the past. So I figured I will try it out and see if I've got any benefits from it or if it harms the fruit whatsoever. Good old coffee. Good old coffee. What else is going in the garden? Told you all about the fall stuff that we're planting already. We're going to have a big harvest video on our carrots as well as our onions. The onions. Okay. Onions. This year, for some reason, I think they're white Spanish onions. They produce fairly decent. But then we pruned them. We cut them back as part of an experiment that we did on the channel. And we're going to have the somewhat conclusive results from that. So what happened was the white Spanish onions ended up dying back a lot quicker than the ones that I did not prune back. But the ones that I didn't prune back didn't produce a bulb whatsoever. Just bleh. Bleh. That's what happened to them. That's about it. And so it was a weird year, because normally when I don't prune my onions, they do absolutely great, stellar. They're growing up until very, very late in the season. And when I prune them, typically I don't see any sort of a difference. But this time, pruning them ended their lives a little bit earlier, but we got bigger bulbs than the ones we didn't prune. So it was kind of a bummer, yet I would say we did get some nice results by proving that the ones that we pruned back have clearly, they have bulbs, and the ones that we didn't prune have no bulbs. So I wonder if the ones that we didn't prune back or would have produced bulbs if we had pruned them, or if the ones that we pruned back wouldn't have produced anything. And that's, I think, what has been conclusive. I do wish that the ones that I didn't prune back would have produced at least something, because they always do. So something was off. Whatever it might be, who knows? Sometimes that happens in the garden. You're not always going to have a perfect year, no matter how many years you've been gardening. Some things come up and just create variables in the garden that we can't control, and that's okay. Nothing to stress out over. It's just at the end of the day, it's a few dollars worth of onions, right? We don't garden for financial purposes. We don't garden to say like, wow, here's thousands of dollars of produce that we've got in our backyard. That's not really what it's about. For me, it's a lifestyle. For me, it's about being able to change lives. I hope that I'm able to change your lives for the better, to bring you something that is going to give you return in your life for many, many years to come, as an understanding of what gardening could actually be about. You know, it's not about dollars. It's not about just growing food for us to eat. It is about growing our personal lives in a way that is going to expand into the world outside of us, right? I love teaching people. I love to see that people are able to build their lives upon some sort of foundation, right? For me, it's very spiritual. And gardening is an extension of that. And this YouTube channel is also an extension of that. I hope that I'm able to make somebody's day and to brighten somebody up. Ooh, we got a comment here from Farzan. Lab Made Meat restaurant opened in Singapore. Wow. Ugh. That would be so weird. I don't know how I feel about that yet. Is it too soon? Is it too soon? Lab meat? I don't know about that. So thinking about it, the way this lab grown meat is, right? So it's processed out in a petri dish and everything. It's literally like cloned. And the meat cells are produced in a way that is supposedly, you know, the same natural process as it would be in a biological, you know, an animal. But it just, it doesn't sit right with me. It really doesn't. It kind of just like, it freaks me out. I understand the purpose in it. I understand why it could be beneficial to the world, because agriculture, I mean, mainly I would say like large CAFOs, if you know what those are. It's concentrated agricultural farming operation. CAFOs are a massive, massive contributor to CO2 emissions. But I wouldn't say that it's the meat that's the problem. I wouldn't say that it's the animals that's the problem. I would say that the problem with CAFOs is that, again, we are segregating ourselves out from the way nature intends it, from the way our creator intends this to be. If we had more people growing food at home, more people raising animals at home, instead of these large CAFO operations that are just taking up thousands of acres of barren land, these animals are not eating off of land that is grown in the ground. They are just getting shipped all of this food that is produced from the fields a couple of miles away from my house and being shipped out hundreds of miles across the country, then using up fuel to get there, using up more and more resources. The carbon footprint is so high from those CAFO operations compared to if I was growing a couple of head of steer in my backyard. That is the number one thing that we need to solve in this world and our country here in America, because nobody farms, nobody does it. There's hardly anybody growing. I think like 0.4%, 0.5% of our population is growing their own vegetables, let alone their own meat. So if we solve that problem, then I think we can stay away from this lab grown meat stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it. It could be very, very useful in the future. It could be needed in the future, but I would much rather steer towards a direction where we are in tune with nature and the processes that we have in nature, where it's not going to be detrimental to the environment. A field full of grass being used for production of cows is going to be producing more oxygen than a field of forest, than a field of trees. That is a fact. So growing cows out on a field, eating out in that field all day long is not going to be having a bad effect if we keep that meat local, if we keep the animal's food source local, if we keep everything within like its own microcosm, right? Like its own environment, our own area. If we support local, if we grow local, and if we grow intentionally and we use our dollars intentionally, then that is going to be the answer to so many other problems that we have in this world. But unfortunately, through technology, we're able to ship all of this stuff across everywhere. We're able to do things very efficiently and on large scale, such as we do with the CAFO operations. Large scale, thousands of acres, thousands of cattle, millions of tons of waste that has to be taken care of then, instead of just turned into compost, right? Honest open permaculture. Sorry, it only came up as honest ope on the screen, so of course I go ope. Honest open permaculture. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Love your stuff. If you're who I'm thinking of, I've actually checked out your stuff in the past. Let's get rid of all of these CAFO operations. Millions of gallons of waste that we got to get rid of, instead of using it in the soil to grow the food that the herd is going to eat. When we separate from everything, it all falls apart. It starts taking up so much more in terms of resources. The carbon emission rate just goes up exponentially through the roof as soon as we start separating things out. But if it's cheaper, easier, more effective to do it, then people will do it, because at the end of the day, it's dollars. Dollars is what determines all things. If it's going to be cheaper for them to do it, they're going to do it. They don't care what it's costing our environment. Now, I'm not talking about, somebody down the road who's got a couple hundred head of cattle, right? Perfect. Do your thing all day long. What I am talking about is like these scenes that look like they're from a dystopian video. If you've gone and traveled throughout Texas, I think you see what I'm talking about. New Mexico, also Utah, different. Same story there. You can drive for miles and miles and miles and look out to the left and look out to the right and see nothing but barren land that has been detrimentally destroyed from the way it's being used from this cattle harvesting. Eat meat. It's good for you. But eat the right kind of the meat and support the right kind of farmers. And I think we can slowly make a change in this world by people implementing things like lab-grown meat or the impossible meat, fake meat. I don't support that. But by people turning towards these kind of things, it gives us a couple of indicators. One, it tells us that people are interested in wanting to find new ways to be healthier, right? Because it's advertised to us that these plant alternatives or these lab-based alternatives might be healthier for us or healthier for our world, right? So people want to be healthier. People also want to make a change in this world by going towards these new things and these new technologies that they're coming out with. So lab-grown meat, fake meat, stuff grown in aquaponics or stuff grown sustainability. Perfect. That shows me that there's a little bit of a conscious shift happening in our planet where people are wanting to do more good. Luckily, through the internet, we're able to spread information. Unfortunately, we can also spread misinformation a lot easier than we could have in the past. But the way where we can turn this thing around, right? So if we use the internet as a resource to spread our information of love, caring for our environment and our bodies, and shared all the right kind of information, but instead of turning towards these new technologies that could be potentially very detrimental to us and detrimental to the future course of our planet. So ultimately, I look at it as this way. I don't want to get too off into the weeds, but if we are separating ourselves from nature, if we are separating ourselves from God, if we're separating ourselves from the way that our Creator has intended it to be, then ultimately it is destructive to ourselves. It is destructive to our spiritual walk as well, and it is destructive to our planet. So the ripple effects of small little things like lab-grown meat might seem pretty small here, but the true answer to it is going to be by growing our own stuff, growing our own meat, supporting our local farmer. I can go out and buy half a steer for, I think right now it's about $600, $500, depending on where you're at. I can go and buy that from a farmer that I know had very little impact on the environment. So if we had more farmers like that growing in America and growing all around the world, then we would live in a better place and we wouldn't have to turn to lab-grown meat in the first place. But unfortunately, since we do, people are looking towards that kind of an option. And so it's not scary to me because I think it's going to be some sort of weird dystopian thing where all of a sudden we've got these giant labs that are just like freaky and they're doing some weird things to our bodies, which very well could, because we at this point do not know what the long-term effects would be of consuming this completely unnatural product, right? We don't know what those would be. I just keep on thinking about it. I keep on thinking about it, and I don't really like it. I don't like it. Let me know. Drop a comment in the chat. Let's see. Let's take a poll of the people who are watching right now. Do you like lab-grown meat, or do you not like the idea of lab-grown meat? I think another thing that seems interesting is the bugs. Eat the bugs. Locusts, grasshoppers, all that kind of stuff. They're high, very, very high in protein. That's another interesting thing that's taken off in popularity over the last few years as well. So, yeah, man, baby steps. It took thousands of years to get where we are. It'll take a while to fix what we did. I absolutely agree. And that's kind of what I'm saying, honest, open permaculture. What I'm saying about how we need to return to the past so we can use these future technologies that we've gotten, all of the technologies. Honest Open Permaculture says no lab-grown meat. What do you say? Drop a comment down in the chat below. Lab-grown or non-lab-grown? So far we've got one lab-grown, or one no lab-grown and one zero for the lab-grown. Drop your comments down in the section below. Do you think we should be utilizing lab-grown meat in our diet or not? I vote no. That makes for 2 no's. Good idea, good principle, but we need to take things back to the way things were before, because so many people used to be gardeners. At some point, a few years ago, 20% of people living in America were gardeners, and a few years before that, 45% were gardeners. A few years before that, 60% were gardeners, and a few years before that, 80% of them were gardeners, and a few years before that, 100% of them were gardeners. Everybody, every single freaking person had to be a gardener. Once we transition from being hunter-gatherers to a community of people that live together in one place, maybe traveling seasonally, we had that, but they were gardeners. They had to garden. So, yes, death rates were much higher back then. People died of infection, died of childbirth at incredible rates. Died of starvation at incredible rates because we couldn't store the food. Not that we couldn't grow the food always, but we couldn't store them. We couldn't do anything about a catastrophe, about droughts, about floods, all different kinds of things. But now that we can do those things, if we use the technology that we have, yet time travel back hundreds of years ago and utilize these two things together and merge them as a community of very well-connected people, it almost makes me want to cry. It almost makes me want to cry. How incredible of a world that we could create if more people gardened, if we shared what we had together, if we were able to create the community aspect of it. Gardening, again, is so much more than just growing food. It's about being together as a community. It's about growing together and learning together. Humanity will become an interplanetary civilization. One day, somehow, if we don't blow ourselves up before then, could be possible. We don't know what the limits of this astrological code is that we're presented with in this world. I'm not saying, don't want to confuse people, I'm not saying digital code like we are in some sort of a simulation. I am saying the code of the universe, the code that has been presented to us that we live in. Obviously, there's so many things with this universe that we could not even come close to explaining just a decade ago. Things that we know now. And same thing goes to many, many years ago. In the 1800s, they would have been just dumbfounded with stuff that they made in the 1900s. And same goes to this year. Excuse me. So I think in the future, imagination is the only prohibitive factor to how far we can take things. But it's just important to stick to our roots. I will preach that all day long. Stick to our roots, because we got to make sure that we as people are not becoming removed from our spiritual selves, because it's a quick hop, skip, and a jump away from becoming some people that are consumed with the world, consumed with the things that it has to offer, consumed with entertainment. And if we are consumed with those things, life becomes a different sort of thing. We start spending our dollars in different types of ways. We start allowing our soul to be devoted to different things as well. It's a quick path down to destruction. I will say that. What about lab-grown milk? Lab-grown milk is a totally different type of thing because we are talking different cell types and bacteria, right? So lab-grown milk, a lot like yogurt is, most yogurt is, you would say, lab-grown because it's a cultured yogurt that then grows in the medium and then expands, and all these things divide and multiply and keep on dividing and multiplying and growing. And again, in colonies, these colonies of bacteria produce the yogurt that we eat. So lab-grown milk, probably be okay with, because that is a little bit less removed from the natural process of how milk is produced in night chores time, honest, open permaculture. Thank you so much for tuning into today's live stream. Hopefully we can check you out next week, Thursday at 5:30. Honest, open permaculture. It's been a pleasure. Take care. Have fun on the chores. I wish we had nightly chores. When we have our homestead, we're definitely going to have nightly chores, but at this point, we just got the backyard garden, and usually it doesn't take that much time. Every single day, we're able to get away with, just a few hours a week, to be honest, in our backyard, and that's what I preach here on this channel. Just use methods that take less time, cost less money, and are effective at producing the vegetable harvest that you're looking for. Keep on looking at this interplanetary civilization comment. It is so weird. Something to ponder upon. Will it happen one day? The thing about that is, if we think about it, either there are tons of aliens out right now all over the universe. I mean, right? If aliens were to exist, they would have to exist in expansive numbers because our universe is exponentially expansive. So at that point, it becomes a question of, okay, so if aliens can exist, they would have to exist right now. If they can, they are existing right now somewhere out in this universe. The question then becomes, why haven't we gotten, purely, absolutely conclusive evidence that they have visited us? I know there's a lot of videos online. There's all sorts of people that have had experience. I myself have had a UFO experience. I have seen UFOs before. Me and my friend and one other buddy, two friends, we were driving late at night, up to no good, like teenagers. We might have been consuming some herbs that we probably shouldn't have been, right? Different life, different times. I'll say that. And we were driving along, and we looked up to, it would have been the southwest area of where we were growing. Learn about Sumerian religion and their alien astronaut gods. A lot of cool stuff when we talk about history. Sumerians, very interesting. So over in the southwestern direction of where we were driving, up about 45 degrees in the sky, there was 3 lights that appeared. Just 1, 2. Oh, this is hard to do on the camera. 1, 2, 3, just like this. So imagine my 3 fingers here. These are the lights. The lights popped up into the sky. I'm sorry. I know this is a gardening Q&A, but we're going to talk about anything here on these live streams. 3 lights, right here, doing nothing, just sitting there, just like this. We're like, bro, do you see that, dude? What is that? All of us are in the car. We're freaking out, wondering what the heck it is because we've never seen, just these lights appeared. And before you knew it, it was about 35 seconds, 45 seconds, just as soon as they appeared. We see these three. It's hard to do three of them. Oh my gosh, I cannot do this. There. These three, right? We see these three lights all of a sudden just straight out from each other. I mean, just like outwards. And they left a very, very slight trail across the sky as they disappeared into wherever they came from, whatever it was. But these things, whatever they were, traveled faster than anything I'd ever seen before, faster than a comet, faster than a meteor, across the sky, and disappeared just like that. Three of them. And there's been many reports of the same type of sighting before, originally appearing in this 3 pyramid-shaped pattern, and then blitzing off into oblivion. And I still struggle with this to this day, what that actually was. And they were UFOs. I don't know what they were. Were they of this earth? Were they something that this government has? The government, any government, a government, all of the governments, whatever. We don't know. I don't know anything. I am just trying to figure out this thing that we call life, and I take it one day at a time. I am a very spiritual person, and I attend this. I think that spirituality and God shouldn't be any sort of a thing that takes us away from exploring and learning and being curious about things, right? So I'll just want to say that before I continue. But I am just some human trying to figure out this thing that we call life, right? I take that one day at a time. I have no idea what the heck is going on, who's in control of things, who's pushing what buttons, who's typing in the commands to the computer, if a group of people is doing that. If nobody else has any idea what the heck is going on in this world too, just like me, even the people that we think are controlling this world, they still have no idea what the heck is going on, how to manage it, how to take care of our future, and how to maintain the human population, as it were, on this planet. What if maybe they have no idea what the heck is going on either, and there is no cabal of people controlling the government, right? Very, very likely. I would say almost more likely than there being a cabal that controls the government. But could this have been some sort of a government craft that I had seen and other people, I mean, thousands of people all around the world? Maybe. All I know is what I saw that night. For people just tuning in, we are talking about a UFO sighting because somehow we got down this rabbit trail. Farzan commented about interplanetary civilization. But what I do know is whatever I saw that night was unlike anything I'd ever seen publicly displayed, and unlike anything that I'd ever seen in the past, and likely I could never see them again. But it was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, just reminiscing back to the night, so cool to see something like that. If you've got any UFO experiences, drop them in the chat. If you've got any questions about gardening, do the same thing. Drop it down in the chat. We will get to them as soon as they pop up here on the side of the screen. You can't see where I'm pointing to, but on the side of the screen, your questions will pop up there. I was getting to one other point when it comes to UFOs and aliens. So, saying that aliens exist, and we haven't say we don't have conclusive evidence and the things that we are seeing in our sky are from our government, it's almost equally as scary to question why would aliens not be able to visit our planet if they exist? Because then at that point, that concretely shows that we will probably never get there either, right? Because if our universe has been around, again, I am a very spiritual person. I believe in the Bible 100%. But I also believe that the earth could be very, very, very old. The universe itself can be very, very, very old. We do not have a God that is limited by this thing, this construct that we call time. So it's equally as scary to me having aliens that are here and visiting and not having aliens that are here and visiting. It's scary because then why? Why are they not able to? I think if they were out there and could be, that like we would probably know, but for some reason we don't. And for some reason we don't have conclusive, open, shared evidence about this. It is a very, very hot topic. People will separate themselves from one person because of their beliefs in or not in aliens. I come from the position where I am open about all things. I am, again, trying to figure out this thing that we call life, day by day, wherever it might take us. We'll see. That sentence just kind of like made me a little sad. My father had passed away a couple months ago, and we never know where life is going to take us, right? What I will say, what if there is no God or creator and everything happened coincidentally? I would say, look at the flowers that you grow in your garden. Look at the plants. Look at the way things grow. Look at how interconnected all things are. Hug one of your friends. Hug a family member. Express love to somebody. Share with somebody. Give to somebody. Do those things, and then tell me that everything is a coincidence. Go do that. Go love somebody today. Show them love where they need it, and tell me that there's no divine source. There's no God. There's no creator, because I find it very, very hard to believe that. In fact, I don't believe it. We are missing love in this world, Farzan. I will say that, and I am not by any means any sort of a person that pushes my religion whatsoever. And in fact, I would not say that I'm religious, but I'm not one of these weird New Age spiritualists either. I would say that I practice love. I practice the things that Jesus taught, right? And I think that's the way to live a valuable life, to live a life that is going to be positively impacting other people around me. And that's why what I try and espouse in my videos, I try and bring as much love and care into them as I can. And that's why I make these videos. 480 plus videos, 6 years later, I am still making these videos, even if they just get a few hundred views when I put them out, because I think there's something far more valuable when it comes to life that I could be showing people through the videos instead of just the plants that we're growing, because it gets a lot more deep than that. Right? Farzan, learn about evolution, Big Bang, inflation theory, which explains how everything happened. I'm agnostic, atheist. Well, I will absolutely respectfully disagree with that. Hey, buddy, do you know who else loves you besides me and Mama and your family? Who? Pray. Who do we pray to?
Jesus and God.
Yeah, absolutely. Do they love you? Yes. Who else loves you?
My dad and mommy.
Yeah. And who else?
I don't know.
Your family, your whole family. Farzan, I will respectfully disagree with you, just based off of my own life experiences, based off of the kind of person that I try and be with people around me. And I'm not saying that atheists are bad people whatsoever. I love you. I love you as a person. I love all people. But I went through a phase in my life where I had turned away from God and my spiritual beliefs completely. It came down to one video. I'm not going to mention the video, but unfortunately I watched this video and it caused me to question a lot of my beliefs, and it caused me to question the way I was living my life. The spiritual life that I had built was a very strong base of my life, always has been. But I watched this one video that made me go down a rabbit hole, and thanks to technology and confirmation bias, I was able to confirm a lot of different things that I was questioning in the wrong sorts of values and the wrong kinds of people, right? And it was through these confirmation bias searches, right? We can go on the internet and find whatever we want to believe in, and we can find people to agree with it. I will be clear on that. If you want to believe that morning bright star, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, Satan or Zeus or Ra, any god that you might believe in, or anything, if you want to believe that there's one cabal running the government, if you want to believe that the earth is flat, if you want to believe that the stars are fake, that the universe isn't real, if you want to believe that we live in a simulation, whatever you want to believe in, you can find some people on the internet to agree with you. So that's why I think that it's very dangerous to learn off of information online. It's so hard. It's a double-edged sword, because it's also extremely useful to use the internet to find things out, right? To learn, to grow as a human being. But I myself choose to believe in a greater God, a creator, my Lord and Savior, because of how it has impacted my life and how I see different lives changing around me because of it, right? This is something that I do for other people. I don't do it for myself. I do not seek a spiritual belief because I want to be saved. I understand that at the end of the day, what happens will happen. I understand that when the curtain closes for the final time in my life, as it does whenever it wants to, whenever our time comes, that time, nobody knows, right? I understand that. I don't do this for myself. Yes, I believe fully that Jesus is my Savior, that God is my salvation, my Redeemer, my strength. He is the provider of all things that I have, right? The creator of this expansive universe that we live in. Remember, we don't need to limit God by human language, by things that we can express in words is not a limiting factor to the all-powerful creator of this universe, right? We cannot express in words what God is, what God means. We can't do that. So do I think that there's some man, yes, we are created in the image of God, but what that means, I think, goes so much deeper than just this body, right? This is not just God whatsoever. I don't believe in a man sitting on a throne in this place that we call heaven, and that it's just this place that we're there. I think it is so much deeper than that. I think that the day the Lord calls me to his house and calls me to be with the angels, the guardians of the throne, with I can't even describe it. It blows me away. My point is that we can't bring and express words to what is actually happening, right? And so that is why I don't say it's religious. I don't say I follow this religious belief, because I think religion can also become very detrimental to somebody. I think that we need to understand that what it should be about is love and care and respect and community. We live in a very, very polarized world right now, in a world that Noah's Ark. Look to Scripture. God does not lie. Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for the comment. Farzan, also, I want to get to your comment here. We get morality from religion and science from atheism. Science, rationality, and morality are very important, right? I know many scientists who are Christian, many scientists who are religious, many scientists who, as they get down to it, the more and more they dive into it, the more and more that they find out, the more and more they think like there's no way that this could just happen by coincidence. That is, if you research it, scientists turning to religion or scientists becoming spiritual believers, whatever way you want to word it, there is thousands of reports of people getting so deep into it and realizing that this universe, the systems that are put in place, the way that molecules and atoms and all of the elemental bonds that take place and how they work together, how light waves, the dielectric and magnetic forces of the universe work together, all of these things are so perfect. One little piece of it was put out of whack, then none of it would exist. None of it would exist if one little piece was taken out. We can't figure this thing out. The more and more people look into it, the more they realize that there's something more going on here, right? So people turn into like simulation theory and stuff like that. Like we're able to find out so much that clearly this thing is all brought down to a code, right? Well, if our creator, you want to put that into a code, right? Creates this universe. It's still based on a code, right? But that does not mean that we're going to wake up and we're like, we've got extension cords coming out of us everywhere. They're like keeping our body alive, pumping us with whatever it might be to keep our consciousness alive in these machines that we're in this simulation, right? That doesn't mean that we're in a simulation mechanically bound by a different being in a parallel universe, and we're just living out this one as this simulated energy creation device. Like I'm stuck in this thing, like full out Matrix, right? Just because the universe would have a code does not mean that that also has to be true, right? Right. Because as numbers work, okay, we understand it as a code because that's how humans figure things out. We figure out things through science, math, which is all based on numbers, and algorithms, which are pushed and merged together through. It's all. What I'm trying to say is it's all math. When we get down to it, that's how we understand all things, is based off of numbers. So there's no way that we can say it's anything else besides a code, anything else besides the laws of nature, right? We can't say that because that's our physical limitations of understanding what it actually is. So I believe it. So if God were to create the universe, there would be an underlying law behind all of that, because it is just the way things work, man. It is just the way things work. There's nothing after death, just eternal sleep. Farzan, if there was nothing after death, just eternal sleep, how would we be conscious in the first place? How would we be self-aware? How would we understand that we're living in this moment right now? If there were no future, there would be no past. If there were no there would be no present. So if there were no future, there would no be. No. Oh my gosh, I keep on mixing up my words. If there was no future, there would be no present, there would be no past. That's what I believe. Question. Oh, got to take the phone call. Wife's calling. She's probably seen if we're done yet. Hello? Yes, I'm still doing the live. I can end it up here soon. Just give me a few minutes. Okay, love you. Wow. All right. 1 hour and 42 minutes. Wow, we got very, very deep into that. Wife is going to be headed home here with the rest of our kids. So that's going to be just about time's up for today. We went 1 hour and 42 minutes into it. Went very in depth here. Went off the rail. Going into all sorts of things. We talked about UFOs. We talked about government. We talked about spirituality, religion. We talked about gardening as well. We answered a few gardening questions. So it was a fun time with you all. If you got any other questions, drop them down in the comment section below and we will get to them. Then you believe there is no heaven, Farzan. Yeah, that's what Farzan believes. So before I go, I do want to answer that. There is nothing after death, just eternal sleep, says Farzan. Whenever I think about that, I just think about the way that consciousness works. If there were no future, there would be no present. We would not be aware of it because there'd be no meaningful reason to be aware. There would be no effect. But if you believe in evolution, right? So say you believe in evolution, there would be no biological effect to being aware and having these memories that we have. Say like, oh, well, these animals then have memories of whatever it is attacking them, right? So, but you're going to tell me that went all the way back to just when nothing existed and somehow everything just fell into place and all of these things were created, all of these systems were created that work so in tune together. If we're in tune with nature, if we take our times back to Eden, all of these systems and processes work together fluidly. There's no flaws in this system. If there's a system with no flaws, it cannot be evolutionary because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I just don't believe it. Absolutely not. Yes, and Farzan, I don't want to rag on you either. Noah's Ark 1962 says he believes that we are here by chance, and that is what Farzan believes. I don't not love you because of that. I understand that we all go through lives in different ways, but I just look at things like the Fibonacci sequence. We look at how universal, again, mathematics and code is to this universe, and that leads me to believe that we have a creator. That alone. But ultimately, the people that I talk to and interact with, and the people I meet, the people I am able to grow with through my spiritual walk, that's what it's all about, and that's why I do it. It is not a personal thing. I don't do this for myself, strictly for myself. I do this because I understand that I live a positive life that is impacting other people around me. And I know for a fact, the more that I read the Bible, the more that I study these things, the more that I understand what it truly means to be a Christian, the better of a person that I am to the people around me, the better my heart feels, the better I feel inside, the better I sleep at night. The better I sleep at night. So everybody, it is time to go for the day. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. It has been a refreshing chat with you all. Again, we are doing these every Thursday at around 5:30 EST. Just a second, buddy.
The other episode, Minecraft turned
Uh-oh. It has been great. We're going to be tuning in. See you all next week. We've got, of course, our weekly videos and shorts coming up. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you've got to email us, you can email us, expeditionhomestead@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, Ripley Sartain, whatever. All of the things, find us on all the platforms. Thank you all so much for tuning into this exciting yet unexpected live stream here on Expedition Homestead. I hope your gardens are growing well. Farzan, we will talk more in the future. You are a long-term viewer. Love you. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the channel. Again, there's no problem with disagreeing. Disagreement is a great thing to have in life. It is just important that we do not separate ourselves through disagreement, but yet understand the path that we are on, understand how to love each other no matter what, right? Because that is what this life is all about. That's what this life is all about. With that being said, happy